everybody. Welcome back to Fruit Basket Podcast. Today, I should introduce myself, just in case. I'm Pio Anime, and my co-host is Francesca.
Hello, I am also here.
Yes, yay. Today, we're going to be talking about episode 15 and 16. And so both these episodes are really good. So let's just get on it. Let's do this.
Let's just jump into it.
Yeah. Very beginning of episode 15. Oh, it's called See You Later. And we have like Yuki at school, and he's like, sorry about my mom, and apparently like his mom changed like his conference date for his parent teacher conference.
Parent-teacher conferences are here.
Yes. So his mom changed the time or the date, like last minute or something. And then Toru's there to see that, like when I think he was apologizing to the teacher, remember right?
Yeah, Mayuko.
Yeah. And so Toru's there, and when he's explaining the situation, and then Toru thinks about like how all of a sudden how Akito's like said to her that like nothing's going to change and that all the Zodiacs are going to come back. She's like, she gets inspired. She's like, oh, Yuki, remember that like this is about your own path and your own decisions.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
Because you need to like choose your own decisions. And she tells him to do his best. And then she's like, remembers like the Akito said like not to meddle in their like business. So she's like, I will do my best to meddle.
I know, it's so good.
That's the whole like first little scene. Then like we go to the conferences. So we have Uo's, and she's like unsure like about her dad's like income. Like she doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey.
I mean, no, she works 2 jobs. Like like kind of the breadwinner at this point. It seems like.
So she's like, I'm just gonna work. And then they're like, do you have a job in mind? And it makes her like flashback to like when Toru's like, oh, you're so tall, you can be a model. She's like, modeling?
Yeah. It's so cute. I would love to see Uo as a model. That's so sweet.
And then we have Hana, and they're like, what are your goals? And she's just like, I want to graduate.
Yeah. That's such a mood. That was me in like 11th. Like I think I did okay in my senior year, but in like 11th grade or what was my worst year? It was like 10th grade. I was Hana basically.
Yeah, no, 11th grade was like where I was like, oh, I gotta graduate. Like this hit me. Like
yeah, I think I actually did pretty well 11th grade. I think it was 10th grade. And I was kind of like her too, where I could have passed my classes. I just did not feel like it apparently.
Same. Then we have Toru's conference, and so Shigure's there, and so Mayu is just like not having it. She's like, why is he here?
Oh my gosh, it was so cute the way Toru went, Diamond Duster. It was so cute. They're like, what are you talking about, Toru?
And but then they talk about how Toru still plans to just go straight to work, because that's what she promised her mom, pretty much, in a way, that she would do. And then they also mentioned that after graduation, she'll move out of the the Shigure's house, I should say.
Yeah. It's like kind of bittersweet to think about.
Yeah.
The way that she kind of got sad about it brings it back to like, I think it was episode 2 of the season, wherever she talked about how she gets like overwhelmed by thinking about having to move one day and have her own job and all that.
Mm-hmm. But then Shigure is just like, well, if you want, you could be my wife. Like, I'm 28.
Like, Shigure, please no.
Like, I'm 28. I don't got a wife. I'm single. And then it's like, and then Mayu's like, oh, you don't, she puts in like that little like teacher nice like face, and she's like, oh, don't you know proposals are like really special to a girl? You shouldn't do that. And he's like, oh, are you that old fashioned? Like,
I know. And Toru again with the diamond dust.
Yeah, diamond dust. But at the very end, Mayu does tell Toru, just try not to bear everything by yourself. And I was like, yes, Mayu, amen.
I know, Mayu, best teacher.
Then they're done, so like Shigure is like, all right, can I like talk to your teacher about something else, Toru, and you can leave? And Toru's like, but the diamond dust. And she's like,
I know.
And
You have no idea what she's saying.
yeah, Shigure's like, "You're not making any sense. Just sleep." You
I know, patting her little head.
yeah. And then so Mayu's just like, "Oh, you came here like and like to rub my face and like even wearing Hattori's suit." And
No.
but she eventually says like to start to treat Toru with more care. And then we get into like Shigure, and it shows actually a little tiny part of like Rin and Shigure's conversation. And Rin was asking him like if he really treats people just like objects. And so Shigure is like, "Oh, I'm treating her with care for being me, like for who I am."
Like, considering who I am, I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Mayu even goes far enough to say like you may not even be kind to those he loves, which I was like, oof.
Yeah. It's like the foreshadowing, bro.
Yeah. But then we go to Toru sitting outside school, and she's just kind of thinking about her future. I think that's when they reference like the lid again, in a way. Remember right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
because Uo asks her what's got her down, and she's like, just thinking about my future, and she's like, no, that's not it. And she's like thinking about the lid.
yeah. But it kind of reinstates, to focus on the present. And she's like, "Oh, like eating somen," and then they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
She
Yeah, and they're
explains
like,
that.
and she brings up that Shigure told her that, and it kind of reinforces them being like, don't trust Shigure. Shigure is bad. And Toru's like, no, he's amazing.
Yeah. So, and then as they're like talking about that, Kyo and Kazuma come up and they're like, "Oh, who's that with Kyo?" And they're like, and she's like, and Toru's being like, she's like, "Oh, it's his dad," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
I know. And then Hana being the most relatable queen.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, he's so handsome," and
I know.
and I was like, "True, true."
Yeah, true.
But Toru and U are like, "What?" And they're like shocked she says it.
I know.
Then we go
I
to
love Hana.
then we go to Kyo's conference with Kazuma and Mayu, and it's really awkward because we know like Kyo's gonna be locked up after graduation, so they're like, "What do you want to
Yeah.
do?" And he's just like, and Kazuma is even like, "I can't imagine him working or as a college student."
Yeah. Well, he's basically just calling him a baby.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't picture this little boy being adult. And Maya's like, yeah, I can see that. And he's like, what?
And so they leave, like I guess with not really an answer, and he tells Kyo like to think it over, and like that parents shouldn't like tell their child like what they should be, so it's to tell him when he decides like what he wants to do, to make sure to tell Kazuma that what it is. So
Yeah. Cosmo's such a good dad.
yeah. And then so Kyo like reflecting on what he said and looking at his bracelet, and he's like, "There's not much time left," and he's like, "All I can think about is to be with Toru," and I'm like,
I know, he is smitten, man. He's got it rough.
and then all of a sudden a shoe comes flying out of nowhere, and he catches it, and it's Uo and Hana and Toru, and they're like, "We're going to your house to have a Soma party. You want to come?" And
Soma.
oh, Soma. You know what
I mean, it is a Soma party.
It is it is a Soma party. It's at their house. A Soman party. But anyway, and so he's like, he smiles and he's like, "Yeah, I'll come to the Soman party." And so, but like as they're like eating, they're talking about Hana thinking Cosmo is like really hot or handsome, and like picking on Kyo about it.
It was just like, oh no.
So then like transition all of a sudden to Yuki, and he's on the phone, and it's like the screen just like goes to all the grays and darks, and he's talking to his mom, just I guess making sure she's ready for the conference, and she's like, "Yeah," but then he says how like just hearing her voice would like makes him go back to like that sinking feeling that he's had in the past, and then it shows his mom coming, and of course it's like raining.
And just setting the atmosphere.
Yes, his mom comes to school, and then it goes to like a flashback of Yuki when he's younger, and it's pretty much like they're at a party or something, and or in front of some people somewhere, and he's like begging his mom, like he's scared and he like wants to go home and he doesn't like it there, and like in the room with Akito, and she's just like ignores it, and she's just like, oh, isn't it so great that Akito loves you?
No, it's so like that part is always so heartbreaking.
And then I noticed, this was something I kind of want to talk about, was when he thought about that flashback and it went back to him in the rain, like he did a cough, like a little cough.
Yeah. Kind of
And I was
triggers his
like,
like bronchial problems.
yeah, and I was like thinking about, I don't know why I never thought about this, but how like every time he thinks of like, you know, like Akito or small places, or like even in the first season, like when he had his attack with when Haru was there, like he thought of Akito, and I'm like, it's obviously also like a mental connected to physical, I feel
Yeah,
like.
it's psychosomatic, I believe is the term.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me see.
You look it up.
Of a physical illness or other condition caused or aggravated by a mental factor such as internal conflict or stress.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
don't know, I just thought that was, I don't know why I never realized that, but
yeah. I think
I was like,
that they do a really good job portraying like different symptoms of like mental health or like PTSD.
So they go to the conference, and his mom's like they're talking about like what's he gonna do, and she's just like, oh, it's already decided, I already know what college he's gonna go to because he's like gonna be the leader of the Soma family. And Yuki's just like,
Yeah,
what?
he's like, huh, Nani?
Like, and obviously she never talked to him about that because his face was like, okay. He's like, why didn't you tell me? And his mom says like, oh, well, you can never make decisions on your own,
I
and
know.
you never had your own opinions. And I'm like,
No, I'm like, oh my god, this bee.
yes. And but Mayu tries to stop his mom like talking like that. Yuki starts to like tell himself like to say something out loud, and like but yeah, after that he's like say it, he's like, say your opinion, talk, and he like to himself, and he
Yeah.
can't. And then it goes to that flashback, yeah, where like he wants to go to a school that's outside of the Soma estate, and she's like, oh, well, you never said that you didn't like the Soma estate before. And he's just like, yeah, he's like remembering when he was a kid, he would tell her all the
Yeah,
time.
and it's either like just pure like she did not listen at all, or it's like a gaslighting tactic, like
Yeah.
telling she's like gaslighting him basically, like you never said this, and he's like, I know I said this, like she's trying to make him think he's like insane.
hmm And he mentions how like he tries to speak to her, but like his words just die, and like they don't reach her, it seems like,
Mm.
and that's why he never really speaks up. Like, or he said made him feel like he should never speak again. Yeah, and I love that scene though, like how the table like kept getting like longer as like, or the room kept getting like stretched as
Yeah,
Yuki was like, say it, like
yeah, it's like
it was like,
he can't reach them. He's like getting
yeah.
farther and farther away.
But then all of a sudden, a door opens,
Yeah.
and it's Aya, and we're all
Yes,
happy.
King.
And he has flowers, and he's walks in talking like with poems or whatever.
And it's great too because his color scheme is also great. He has like these vibrant reds on, which very contrasts like the cool colors. Like Yuki's wearing
hmm
blue. Maiko, I'm pretty sure, is like wearing green. Like all these cool colors, and then Ayame comes in with like the burst and the roses, and he's like livening up the place.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, I'm here, and he's like, the brother that holds you dear is here, or something like that. And his mom like flips out. She's like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
she just cannot handle him at all.
Yeah, and even Yuki's like, I didn't know mom like couldn't handle
Yeah,
Aya like this.
yeah, it's crazy.
And then it's funny because Aya's like, don't interrupt, mother. We're trying to discuss Yuki's future.
Yeah, he really said, "Shut the f up, mother." Like he really came in there and said that.
But then their mom she says something along the lines of like Aya is just gonna like he's useless and he's not gonna help you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, something along those lines. And then Yuki's like he says he can depend on him and he's not useless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she's like, what's happened? Like, how are you guys?
I know. She's
So
like, what is
close
going
now.
on?
And Aya says how like Yuki gave him a second chance and that she's just like how he used to be and trampling on things that are precious to her without even noticing.
Yeah.
So
I just like how much they show Aya has changed because, like,
yeah.
if you go back to when he was a teenager, and they even cut out some scenes
Mm-hmm.
from the manga, but he was so unlikable.
Uh-huh.
He was such like a jerk to Yuki back then, and like now it's like completely made up for it.
Mm-hmm. But she, of course, like gets angry and like I forget what she says, but she's like, "Oh, this is disgrace" or something. I don't know. And she just she gets angry and like storms out before she like leaves. She's like, "I wish I never gave birth to you guys. There's no, I wish
Yeah.
you never were born," something like that. And
Hmm.
like Mayu's trying to like tell her something before she leaves, and Aya's just like, "Forget it." Like she's angry, like you
Hmm.
can't help it. And then Yuki is like thinks of Toru, and she said try your best or do your best. And so Yuki gets up and he's like, I'll go talk to her. And I'm like, yeah, Yuki, face it.
Yeah.
Which I love that part because I don't know, just like that was the best he could do. So he was gonna go talk to his mom.
He like, oh well, we kind of skipped over it, but how he like stood up for IMA and stuff, and talking
Mm.
about how IMA is important to him, and even if he doesn't understand him or whatever, like, and I love the brotherly love.
Yeah,
That's
but yeah, at the end, like, or at the end of that scene, I and Mayu are in like the room together, and he's like, "Sorry about my mom. She can be like really demanding and stuff, and all this stuff." And then she's like, "Well, at least Yuki said he can depend on you," and he's just like so happy about that, and
I know it's so sweet.
gonna tell Hattori.
Yeah.
So then we have Yuki chasing after his mom in the hallway, and he finally catches up to her and like he puts his hand on her like to stop her like on her shoulder. That's when he like notices, oh my goodness, she's so much smaller than she used to be, like because when he was little she was so big to him.
Yeah, it's like she's losing his power over him. It's like
Mm-hmm.
basically like obviously he's a lot bigger now. Like metaphorically, he's also growing so much as a person that before it was like the end of the world if she didn't like love him or like didn't give him the attention he needed. But now it's like he's able to stand on his own and he has like a support system to back him up now that he didn't have before.
But he pretty much just tells her like, I want to do something with my life and you may not approve of it, but I want to be I want to make me proud. And he just says like, please don't decide for me like what college I will apply myself.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much, like standing his ground about that. And it was, again, go Yuki. Like the mom, I can't remember if she says anything. I think she just leaves. But
Yeah,
it's like,
kind of
okay.
storms out, I think.
Yeah. Yuki sees Toru like in the hallway. But then
Mhm.
Nao comes, he's like, President, we have an emergency. And we never find out what's going on, I don't think. But anyway.
Oh, we do at the after credit scene.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
But like he grabs Yuki and they're running, and he passes by Toru, and he like just smiles at her, and she
Mhm.
smiles back. Then as he's running by, or as he runs away, like with now it's like she takes out like she has a ribbon up in her hair, and she takes out her ribbon, and I was like, oh my goodness, that scene.
No, it's like the ribbon that he gave her.
Yes,
Symbolism of it all.
yes, and it's kind of like Yuki's starting to stand up on his own kind of feel. So it's like
Mhm.
she took it out, and I was like, oh yeah. But the end scene, I almost see like the second time, first time I watched it, I saw it, but then the second time, like I forgot about it when I was watching it with my friend, and I was like, oh man, I had to like send her a screenshot because I was like, you missed this part. But yeah, it's pretty much the Aya went to the student council and
Yeah.
half of them are like, he's like amazing, and like Machi and Nao are like, what? Oh, I guess Machi doesn't.
Yeah, she's like, "Great, I'm gonna head out."
Yeah, Machi just like comes in the doorway and like backs up, like, no, I'm not gonna go in that crazy room. And yeah, so that was that episode pretty quickly there, but I like that one because I always tell so many people like who haven't read the manga but like ask me random questions about like Yuki's mom because they're like I just end up telling them like I'm like yeah she's really like mean and like I don't know I can finally be like yeah now you can watch an episode see why I don't like her.
Oh,
All right, so we can go on to episode 16 and that was ask him for me and oh just the title. So it starts out with Momiji's dad and him are like talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't think you can take violin lessons anymore because you guys have the same teacher, and Momo's been noticing you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Momiji." And that's all his dad can say to him is like, "Sorry."
So
Like,
I'm like, wow, why don't you spend some quality time with your son, dude? The only time we see you is when you're like, Momiji, you can't do this because we care more about your sister than you.
exactly.
I'm like, poor Momiji. Like, you said you were gonna love him twice as much for his mom, but like, it does not seem like you are.
And but then after that, we go to I think school, and we have Toru talking to Uo and Hana, and oh no, wait, hold on.
Well, it's basically at school. Like, first there's a tiny little scene of her at the Soma estate. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, I
So
bet you're
yeah,
wondering how I got here. It's like needle scratch, one of those deals.
yeah. Since they first it shows her like trying to step into the Soma state. That's right, and then she can't,
Yeah.
and then she's like, oh, here's a story of why I'm here. So, and then it shows school, and
Mm.
and Uo has quit all her part-time jobs and has changed them, or she's working at a family restaurant now. And
Mhm.
Tori's like, but then you'll never see like the guy you like. And
Yeah.
and then she's like, yeah. And then Hana's like, too bad we don't know his name. And she's like, oh, I never told you, it's Kurano. And then Tori's like, is it like
Yeah.
she's like,
Chronosoma?
and then he's like, and then so it was like, what? You know him? And like starts like shaking her, like,
Yeah.
and she's like, what's he look like? And what's he like? And Tori says, brown hair, brown eyes. And she's like, seems really like cool and collected. And she's like, no, that's not him. He's like really spacey.
Yeah. Said he wouldn't notice if he stepped in dog poop.
Yeah. So she's like, that's not him. And then Tori's like, well, we could still find out. And then it was like, no, it's okay. Like, you don't have to. It's most likely not him anyway. But Toru still wants to like she's still like curious about it. So
Yeah, she cares about Ua so much.
so she goes to Kyo, who is wearing the black shirt again. I don't know why.
For real, they really just fed us with that. He wasn't wearing that in the manga.
And Kyo just kind of says, yeah, he doesn't know much either about Kureno. It's like Akito's assistant, and the Zodiacs aren't really supposed to meet with him. So then it goes back to when she's at the estate, and she's like, well, I can't just like barge in.
Yeah, it's just like, hello, Toru Honda, here to see Kureno.
Ding dong, and all that.
Yeah.
So she's like walking around still, and she's like, no, I gotta do this for Umo. And then she hears a violin. So she's like, where's that coming from? And she's like listening, and she bumps into who we find out is Momo. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry.
She's so cute.
I know, she's so cute. And then she's about like to say, she's like, oh, you're Momiji. And then she like stops because she's like, oh, wait, Momo doesn't know she's Momiji's sister.
Yeah.
And then Momo's like, do you know Momiji? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, do you want to see him? Or something. And she's like, follow me. And so like Toru literally like she like grabs Toru's dress and like drags her. So
Yeah. It's so cute.
yeah,
Shows it to like a secret
there's like
entrance.
a hole.
Just a giant hole in the wall, and it's like, huh?
Yeah, I'm like, what? You think the Asomas, how rich they are, would be like this be able to patch that up.
Yeah.
But oh well. So they sneak through a hole in the wall, and then Toru's like, "Do you know Momiji?" And she's like, "Yeah, I see him at Papa's work all the time." And she's like, "Oh, duh." So eventually they end up at like Momiji's back door, and he's playing the violin. And then Momo talks about how she always likes to watch him play the violin,
Yeah.
and that's why she started to play the violin.
Mhm.
And then Toru's like, "Well, why don't you go talk to him?" And she's like, "Dad says I can't talk to him," which is sad.
I know, it's so sad, like, oh, man, especially when I was first reading the manga, this stuff made me so sad. I was like, "Just talk to each other."
So then, like, Momo's like talking about, "Oh, it'd be so great because he looks just like mom." Or that if we could be like, siblings, he could be my big brother and we could play together. So
Yeah.
she's like, Toru, well, she's not Toru, but she's like, I took you here, so can you please ask him for me to be my big brother? And so Toru's was like really sad, and as Momo's
Yeah.
like, make sure you ask him. And so Momo like runs back probably to escape out of the Soma estate.
Yeah.
So Toru goes up to Momiji's door, and Momiji's are like, "Oh, Toru, what are you like surprised? Like, how did you get here?" And then he sees
Yeah.
that she's like sad, and he's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And then Toru, I think she just like sees the violin and asks him about it. He tells her how like he has to stop taking lessons, and then he says how his dad's just scared that he'll break his
Yeah.
new family that he built, or his new happiness that he built.
Yeah.
So, and again, I just love how Momiji, like, even though like things are against him, he just like tries to look at it like, oh, like he's trying to help his dad, and like he understands.
No, he's too pure for this world.
Yeah. Um,
He'd be upset.
but yeah, then Toru just like can't take it. She starts crying and like falls to her knees, and ugh, that part was. And then I remember there was a part where like she said like
Oh my gosh.
it was like can't uh can't see them even though they are still in the world. And then she thought of her mom, like how her mom's not even
Yeah.
there. And
Well, all of Twitter talking about the air jump that she
I
did.
know it was kind of weird.
But, I mean, to be fair, I was talking about it too. It was really funny.
Yeah, I was like, I thought she was just gonna go to her knees, but it was like I don't know.
A little hop.
Yeah, she kind of hopped. But she tells Momiji like Momo's been watching him this whole time, and that she's noticing him, and that she knows who he is, and that just makes Momiji just cry of happiness.
Mhm.
He's just like, I shouldn't be feeling this way, but I feel so happy. And I'm like, oh.
Mhm.
Um,
No, he's so pure.
and then he says like, and then I think Toru says something like, feelings grow when you can't see them, something like that, or you
Mhm.
can't see someone that you love.
Yeah, it's like connecting it to Uo
Yes,
and Kureno.
yes. And then finally we get Momiji telling her like his future plans, because he did like tell her like I don't know what episode it was, but he was like, oh,
Yeah. It was episode 2, I believe, of season 2.
okay, yeah. He's like, I'll tell you what I want to do someday. And so he finally says, I want to be a violinist. Why can't I say that? Violinist. Anyway, and have a concert for his family.
The cutest dream ever. Most wholesome.
Then he says like that he's happy. He can only be happy because Toru's there to cry for him. And then finally, because of that, Toru's like, I need to see him, and he's like, who? He's like, I need to see Kureno. And since she says like someone's been waiting to see him for a long time, she makes sure like she's like, oh, it's not like I'm doing this for someone else though. It's just because she's kind of doing it on her own, which was a big step in Toru's world to do something like that.
Yeah, she's still doing it because she wants to help, but she's not really taking what Uo said into account. She's doing it, like, taking stuff into her own hands.
Yeah,
She's meddling.
yes, she is. And then Momiji says it's hard to see him, but that might just be because he's a zodiac. And so Bemiji says, I'll go with you. And because he's worried that like something might happen to Toru. And it shows like when Toru got like scratched from Akito. And I was like, oh, that's like that part hurts so much. So Momiji gives Toru a map so she can find her way to Kureno, and she starts to follow it. She does see him for like in the window for like a second.
Yeah.
But then there's like a person, and she's like, "Oh no!" And she runs away, and there's another person,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh no!"
Cute little detail. The first people who she sees, I believe, are Kuro's parents.
Yeah, and she sees like the
It's
old
really cute.
maid with another person.
Oh man, the old maid. I hate her.
Yeah, so she ends up like getting lost in the end because she keeps running
Hmm.
away from hiding from people. So she's like, "Oh no, what do I do?" And she pulled out a picture of her mom, and she's like, "Give me courage, mom." And she's like, "Gonna keep going."
Yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about the next part? You can.
Yeah, I was gonna say then a mysterious person who's there, and Toru's like, "Oh no, oh god."
Yeah, she's like,
Then
who's that? What's that voice belong to? Yeah, it's like just a they don't show who it
yeah,
is.
mysterious. Then
And Kareno comes up though, then and helps her escape, but
hmm,
we know it's not Akito because he says like, "Oh, Akito needs me right now." So
hmm. I wonder who it is.
the way that
Ooh.
was edited, where like he just like takes Toru and like the doors are closed, like
I know.
it was so
Yeah,
fast.
sometimes this anime adaptation does that, where it's just kind of funny.
Yeah,
It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's funny.
yeah. So he takes Toru away because he sees her and he's like, I heard someone, yell out my name, and so I followed you or whatever. And he's like, how'd
Mm.
you get in here? You shouldn't be here. Like, I could call the police on you. And then
Yeah,
she's like flipping out when he said that.
no.
And so she's like, wait, I have to tell you something. Listen to what I have to say. It's like, do you know, like, Uo, and then that's when he like lets go of her hand, and she's like, oh, it is the Uo's
Yeah,
Kureno. And she just says that Uo usually doesn't complain much, but she wants to see you. He says like he doesn't plan to see her, and then
yeah,
Toru asks if that's because has a zodiac spirit, and Kureno says no. And then she like tries to get an answer out of him, but he kind of just avoids like answering. And so she's like, well, here's her contact information. And like and she's like, if you ever think about her again, like even a year from now, like you want to call her, you'll have her number. And she like hides it like in the like
yeah.
dirt or something.
And she's like, maybe a year from now, even 10 years from now. I'm like, yeah, maybe wait a little bit. She's kind of 17 right
Yeah,
now, but
exactly.
I'm like, you know what, Toru, let him wait a year.
Yeah, that's exactly perfect timing. But then she like acts like he's gonna put handcuffs on her. She's like, okay.
I know, she's so cute. She thinks she's about to get arrested.
And he laughs and he's like, "No, I don't have that on me. Like I can't really actually arrest you." And he's like, "I'll let you go." And then he says like someone was worried about you anyway. And Momiji comes out, so Momiji was following
Oh yeah,
her.
Momiji, best boy.
Uh, Momiji takes her away. He's like saying, you shouldn't be here anyway, or you don't belong here." Something like
He
something.
said someone like you shouldn't be here. So like somebody as sweet and kind as
Yeah,
Toru shouldn't be somewhere as cursed
and
as the Soma estate. And I'm like, you know what, Kureno, I agree.
so he says it in a nice
Toru, get out
way.
of here.
Yeah, he says it in a nice way, like someone as nice as you shouldn't be here. And
Yeah.
when she looks back, he's like, has a softer smile, which she hasn't seen him smile yet. So
Yeah. Then it shows him in the shade, which shows like how he's still in the dark.
yeah,
While everybody else is kind of in the sun, like Toru's in the sun. He's like under the shade. All the visual, like if you look at like any visuals for Kureno in the show, like even the opening where he's just standing in the shade, all sad.
yeah, and that's when Toru starts thinking about like she says, "My heart is breaking," and I was like, "Oh."
Like me too, girl. After that Momiji stuff.
And so then she goes to Momiji's room again or house, whatever, and he's like, kind of just like, "Well, thank you for coming and telling me about Momo," and then he's like, "I'll thank you with the concert someday." And she he's like, "What song do you like?" And she says, "Birth of Wishes," which was a song from season 1, apparently. So
Well, yeah, the one anytime it would wait, I forget if it's the do, 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 do,
yeah, I don't
or
remember
is
which
it the
one
one
either.
where
It's like
Or is
It's one of the background songs.
it the one where they start singing?
Yeah, yeah, I know. I think yeah, it's one of the background songs, but like in the a comic, it was like "When You Wish Upon a Star," I think. So
Yeah, I kind of prefer the new one because, like, When You Wish Upon a Star, I'm sure it's like good in Japan, but here it's just so like
yeah,
heavily associated with Disney that it's gonna be funny if she's like, I want you to play this song that plays at the beginning of Disney
yeah.
movies, you know?
So she just was thinking of wishes because she like so she was like she just related it to like because she was thinking about
Yeah.
wishing. So
Mhm.
made you like, yeah, I'll practice and play for that for you one day. And so then it shows Toru on the roof, which because she's
Yeah.
deep in thought, and so Kyo comes up like
Yeah, it's like, oh, how the turntables.
Kyo comes up and he's just like, what? Well, you're up here, oh, okay. And he's like, you okay? And he's like, what did you do today? You were like covered in dirt when you got home because she
Yeah, for real. She's like running around in the dirt the
yeah.
whole day. Baby. Poor Toro.
Um, and then Toru just asks, when you like someone, don't you like want to be with them? And then like Kyo blushy because obviously he wants to be with Toru.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
And so he's just like, oh, do you got a crush? And she's like, oh no.
Yeah.
She's like, it's not about me. Then Kyo's like, I'm kidding. And he's like, don't worry, when you find someone, I'll support you. And
No, and then Toro's just like,
yeah,
she just starts
because she's first
crying.
like, oh,
Like, same
thank you.
girl.
And then she just cries. And he's like, why are you crying? She's like, I don't know.
Funny how many people didn't catch on, like, to that scene. Like, I guess, like, kind of the implications of her starting to cry
Yeah.
there, which they go into in the next episode more, obviously. It was so cute.
Yeah. So then it like just kind of talks about, or Tori thinks about how, she talks about her heart breaking again, and that maybe it's because she wishes for things that are impossible.
Or she knows about others' wishes that
Yeah.
are impossible,
And she like
too.
wishes with them that those wishes could come true.
Yeah.
And then shows Momiji like playing his violin. He's playing that song. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
And Momo thinking about him, most likely. And
Yeah.
also Kurono, he took the paper. He got he got the
Yeah.
contact.
Got the digits.
And then she asks Kyo like what's one of his wishes, and he just says for someone to stop crying, and I'm like, ah.
No, it's so cute. They're so wholesome.
That's like one of my favorite scenes I read. I remember even though it's really small. I was like, that's so
No, it's so
pretty.
cute.
So and that was the end of that episode.
I loved it. I love that
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. Like the Kyo and Toru part, and also just
Yeah.
no Momiji always wins me over. Anything Momiji, I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah, true. Same. Love Momiji. I know it's cool too. I mean, yeah. I'm not like one of the biggest Kurano fangirls, but I like him.
no, I like him more like weirdly animated like than I did in the book. I think it's just
Yeah, same. I think the anime made me like him a little bit more. I think
yeah.
that, like, they're Kurano fans and I'm more of an Uo fan, in that relationship, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Thanks so much, guys, for listening to our podcast today, and we're gonna try to do one more next week. So if you want to join us, then you can. And yeah, see you then. Bye. Was there any spoiler stuff we want to talk about or not? I
Not really.
think.
I guess okay, I'll go into spoilers now. So click off if you don't want to be spoiled. But like, oh, I'm really disappointed with how they introduced Ren. But
Oh
I don't
yeah.
really mind that much. I don't know why. I don't like because I feel like even if they did it a little bit better, like a lot of people still, you know, by next season they would have forgotten anyway. I guess
I don't
that
know.
kind of stuff is like the stuff even when you read the manga for the first time, you don't always catch on.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, but I think like Breathy already caught on.
I mean, some
So
people, there are two people who watch Fruits Basket. There's like the theorizers who like read and stuff, and then there's people who are just like along for the ride.
yeah, no, I get you.
Like
Um,
if you watch Thought Bubble, they're really good at predictions. The guy there is really good at predictions. Do you know them? I think you do, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I like their podcast a lot too.
but I get what you mean. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. Really, I was okay with it, like how they introduced her. But
Yeah. I guess I don't care that much about Ren. I mean, I hate her. You know,
yeah,
like she
true.
doesn't deserve a good intro. It's
Yeah, very true.
kind of like if
Uh,
they like my feelings for Ren are like if they introduced the old maid in the wrong way, I'd be like, I don't.
yeah,
kind of want to see what she looks like though. Like when she's like they get like concept art of her.
yeah.
Like I'm excited to see how she looks in the anime. I mean, I'm assuming it's similar to the manga because in later portions of the manga, it looks very similar to how the anime looks.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. I would say the art is getting more like the manga, like towards the end of the manga kind of feel almost.
Yeah.
So, which I love. I'm like, yes.
Hmm. It kind of reminds me. This is a weird comparison, but like of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Uh,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
art style will drastically change from like the beginning of a part to the end of a part, so they usually take the stop from the end of the part. Because that's like
Hmm.
when it's the most refined. Early Fruits
Yeah.
Basket was a little rough. We
But
loved
I
her
like,
for it. We loved
I,
Fruits Basket for it.
yeah, I like it for that. So I was gonna say
Yeah,
it's like now we
the growth.
talking OG. Yeah, that was
Blank stare, Yuki.
that was a little rough. I'd say
I mean,
it's
to be
so.
fair, I feel like in the manga, Yuki gives off rat vibes.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
His
I get
big
like the
eyes,
beginning. Mm-hmm.
like those
The
are rat eyes.
Well, I always thought, Yuki has big eyes because he has that girly face, what he's supposed to have.
Yeah,
And like in manga and anime, usually the girls have bigger eyes, like
yeah.
or like really cute boys will have
Yeah, it's
bigger
definitely
eyes.
that. I just also think that he looks like a rat, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, no, I see that. Like, and that's the
It's
thing.
like
It's what.
there's like a meme where they're like, he's hot, but in a rat kind of way.
That's great. But yeah, I think I like the whole like. Some people like think it's weird, but I like the whole art change over time kind of thing.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, most manga does that, I think, and especially
Mhm.
shoujo manga that I've
Oh
seen.
yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is about shoujo manga, but like sometimes the art is really bad at the beginning and then it's like beautiful at the end.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, I like it because it like goes with how like they're maturing, so it's like
Yeah,
becoming more pretty.
yeah. It kind of gets lost in the new adaptation because you know, uh, kept it like I feel like they look so much younger at the beginning, and they look so old at the end. But now they kind of just look like how they're gonna look in the end.
Yeah, I don't know because maybe like season 3 it'll do a little more. I have no idea.
I don't know. I think it's harder to do, like
Yeah.
change heights. Like I'm still like I still don't understand the physics of Shigure being like 3 feet taller than like Kyo and Yuki at this.
Yeah,
But
no,
like that, like
Shigure is so tall.
that's not really a complaint to the show because I like nobody else cares about that but me because I'm over here like why is Shigure why the adult men and some men they're like so giant and in some scenes like there's one where like he like I think it's in the Kisa episode where Shigure like leans down on Kyo and like smothers him because he said
Yeah,
something rude to Kisa and I'm like
yeah,
oh my god he's a giant.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like Kyo is so tiny underneath this huge man. What the heck?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And then sometimes there's scenes where like Shigure, like he's still tall, but he looks like smaller. Like it just depends on the scene. I feel like
Yeah,
like I
it's.
feel
I
like he
mean,
should be
animation is
taller.
hard, so I'm not blaming them for this, really.
Yeah, like like when he was in like the episode with this recently with Mayu in the classroom and Toru, and they were like the diamond dust and all of that. There was a part where I was like, I think it's because he was in a suit, maybe, but like he seemed like shorter than like he should have been. But I was like, but then
Mm.
again, that's like a fun scene. So like, but like
Yeah, well,
it wasn't cheesy
maybe it was
though.
in comparison to Mayu because Mayu is supposed to be very tall.
Okay, that might have been it.
If you look at Mayu, she's like a foot taller than all the other women characters, like
Yeah,
even Yuki's
yeah,
mom.
that's true. And so then Toru's just short. Like
Toru's a little baby.
I remember people were like, "Oh, I remember someone I don't know where, but someone was like, "Oh, Kyo's so tall," because like he was standing next to Toru. I'm like, "No, she's just really short."
Yeah, it was like average.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was good. Thanks so much, guys, for listening to our podcast today, and we're gonna try to do one more next week. So if you want to join us, then you can. And yeah, see you then. Bye.